The views and opinions expressed by the following program and its participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Bobo 89.1 FM and DMS Broadcasting respective stations. The program participants' opinions are based upon information they consider reliable and based on their knowledge.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome to The Green Scene. I'm Wendy Dandy, the Education Programs Officer at the Cayman Turtle Center. We are bringing you the second season of our talk show, The Green Scene, and we hope that you'll tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. here on Bobo 89.1 as we talk about conservation, wildlife, the environment, culture, and much more. In each episode, we'll be exploring topics relating to conservation here in the Cayman Islands, including protecting our natural environment, preserving our culture and heritage, as well as talking all about sea turtles and other native species. Today, we will be discussing World Wildlife Day, and later in the broadcast, we will be joined by our friend and colleague, Jane Hakonsson, Research Officer from the Department of Environment. I also have in studio with me today, Mr. Geddes Sislop, as usual. Good morning, Geddes.
Good morning, Wendy.
All right, so World Wildlife Day, what can you tell us about that?
Okay, so World Wildlife Day, well, we know how important wildlife is in the first place, but the United Nations has seen it fit to actually declare the 3rd of March annually World Wildlife Day. And that is from since 2013. They made that proclamation. And it's to celebrate and to bring awareness to the world wild flora and fauna. Right? So we're considering wildlife not just as the animals themselves, but the animals and their habitat, the plants and ecosystems that they are part of. Because you can't separate them. You know, like penguins need ice, camels need deserts, that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, in isolation. And funny enough, this date also signifies the adaptation of CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, which is one of the most powerful programs they have out there for wildlife conservation. And that's basically, CITES is basically like a group of nations that got together and decided to control illegal wildlife trade by regulating the movement of wildlife across borders.
Right. Okay.
Right, trade. And I think I read it in National Geographic that the illegal wildlife trade is second only to the drug trade in terms of income. You know, smuggling of parrots, for example, exotic parrots around the world. That's people that smuggle things like sloths and ivory, all that kind of stuff. Rhino horn. You know, it's incredible. So CITES, what CITES does is it was adopted, I think, at a meeting in Thailand way back when, in 1973. And what it did was they put animals according to their ecological status into different tiers, CITES Appendix 1, 2, and 3. According to how endangered they are, they're even more restricted. Like, for example, sea turtles, which is something close, CITES Appendix 1, which is the highest level of protection. So what CITES does, it doesn't actually prevent as such trade, but it highly regulates it. So if you have a CITES Appendix 1 species, there's a whole bunch of rules and regulations you have to follow in order to have that species moved across borders. Both receiving and giving parties have to agree. They have to follow certain protocols. The animal has to be treated a certain way, all that kind of stuff. So World Wildlife Day commemorates the adaptation of CITES by the United Nations. And the message for World Wildlife Day is basically that habitats and wildlife now depend on us, especially today. Human impact is global. And you have plastics at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, deepest point on the planet.
Yep, all the way up to Mount Everest.
Yep, right, all the way up to the top of Mount Everest. So there's nowhere on this planet, no matter how remote, that humans don't have some kind of impact, directly or indirectly, negative or positive. Fortunately, it seems to be more negative than positive. So we're urging, so the message that the United Nations said, and I'm just going to quote here, we urge countries to take urgent action to drastically reduce emissions, adapt to climate change extremes, prevent pollution, and put the brakes on biodiversity loss, including recognizing the role that indigenous peoples play in protecting biodiversities. So like Native Americans, in Australia you have the Aborigines, and various indigenous peoples around the world. They've learned to live with nature, side by side with nature, and to protect it inadvertently. So yeah, that's what World Wildlife Day is all about. It's more than just one animal or animals. It's all of that.
So usually every year, well, thank you for that, Gaddis. So usually every year there is a theme. So could you tell me what the theme is for this year, for this year's World Wildlife Day?
Yeah, the theme for World Wildlife Day 2024 is connecting people and planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation. That's a kind of a long thing, but basically means technology. How technology helps in wildlife conservation. And yeah, when Jane comes in a little later, she can definitely talk to that, because doing research with the Department of Environment, they use a surprising amount of technology.
Well, I bet it must be, a really exciting episode. There must be so much evolution in ways that we collect data now and monitor data digitally.
Oh, yeah. So these things are, well, we want our audience to know that wildlife conservation is actually serious enough that, technology is geared towards that kind of thing. Usually people don't put technology into things unless there's some kind of profit to it, but we realize that maintaining biodiversity, protecting our planet and the flora and fauna that inhabit it is worth making that investment. So we need to definitely appreciate World Wildlife Day and other things like that.
Okay. Well, yeah, there are so many new innovations and inventions now, because even on a basic level, there's apps now that you record the sound of a bird, or you take a picture of a certain vista and it'll tell you where exactly it is or what species it is. And these are free apps. So the inventions that they have that are specific to a goal must be really exciting to know about.
Oh, yeah. Well, for bird watchers, for example, including myself, you have things like something called eBird, which is run by Cornell University, where you can record your bird sightings and keeps a record, and with that information, that data that's collected from bird watchers in Cayman and around the world, you can see amazing trends. You have an idea of where species are distributed, because there's so many eyes out there. They can pack that information and process it. You can see the movement of species. You can have a better idea of the status of certain species of birds. That it's citizen science at a vast level. And then to help you, they've developed apps that can identify a species just by taking a picture, or even identify a species by the sound.
Right.
So they're putting investment into things like that. It's really cool. So globally and locally, there are all kinds of technologies they can use for wildlife conservation. A lot of it, well, some of it is available to the average person, because anybody can download one of these bird watching apps. Even if they just want to know what the birds are in their own backyard. But there's other things that I'm sure if you do a search, you can find lots of other cool things out there. There are some things that help you identify plant species even. I don't know how global they are, because of course they might not recognize species, for example, here in Cayman, but AI can learn, which is cool and kind of scary at the same time. So you can teach these things and they get better and better. So basically anybody can become a scientist of sorts using this kind of technology, as long as you have a smartphone or tablet, something like that.
Yeah, and the interest.
And the interest.
All right, so that's awesome. So just to reiterate what you said, the theme for 2024 was connecting people and the planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife. So we just, in wildlife conservation. So we just touched on different little ways that technology is evolving to help with wildlife conservation, both privately and publicly. But the beginning of the theme also said connecting people and the planet. And listeners, please stay tuned. You're listening to The Green Scene on Bobo 89.1 FM, and we'll be back after these messages.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
All right, Cayman, welcome back to The Green Scene, brought to you by Cayman Turtle Center. You're here with Wendy today, and Geddes as well in studio. Good morning, Geddes.
Hello.
And if you missed the first segment of the show, today's show is about World Wildlife Day, which is March 3rd. And the theme for 2024 is connecting people and planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation. So we took a brief little talk about what that could entail in our first segment. And now I just want to highlight some of the organizations in the Cayman Islands that do wildlife conservation. There are quite a few other than the Cayman Turtle Center.
Yeah. Well, globally, there are.
Well, globally, yes, for sure.
Because, for example, the United Nations, because they are the ones that declared World Wildlife Day. And CITES, which you explained earlier, is a Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. United Nations that actually dedicates quite a lot of programs towards conservation globally. And you have other ones, like some of the more well-known ones, World Wildlife Fund. That's the one with the panda as a logo.
WWF.
Everybody knows them. Well, most people know them. The Nature Conservancy. Their program is conserving wild places, and in doing so, preserving wildlife as well. Because as we said earlier, we're talking about wildlife in terms of the animals and the habitat. We're looking at the unit. Oceana, that name pretty much speaks for itself. That's protecting our oceans, and ocean conservation is a big issue. Right? Those of you who like to breathe, protecting the ocean is really important because the ocean produces so much, quite a large percentage of the oxygen that we breathe on this planet. And what else? Wildlife Conservation Society. I mean, there's so many of them. But the Wildlife Conservation Society is well known to us at Turtle Center because they're the ones. I think they're based in Chicago, and they're the ones that work along with institutions like zoos and aquariums to do wildlife conservation programs like captive breeding, that kind of stuff, providing that kind of consultation and support. And since Turtle Center is a captive breeding facility, we're familiar with them too. But locally, we were talking about some local organizations. Yeah,
locally there's a few as well. We've always had the National Trust, which everyone's very aware of, who's also in joint with Botanical, Queen Elizabeth II Botanical Park and Gardens as well. There's the Guy Harvey Foundation. And there's also CCMI in Little Cayman, which is Central Caribbean Marine Institute. Cayman Turtle Center, as you know, the Park Sanctuary and all the good work they do. And also, most importantly, yes, the Department of Environment, DOE. So speaking of DOE, we have a special guest with us today, Miss Jane Hakonsson. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us today. So Jane will be one of our only special guests today, and she will be talking about us with today's topic about wildlife conservation. So Jane, if you don't mind, could you give us a little background about yourself and what you do at the DOE?
Yes, sure. So I am a research officer with the Terrestrial Resources Unit. So earlier you said I would be telling you all about remote tagging of sharks. That I will not, but I can tell you that it will happen or that it is happening. But that's okay. No, I do know roughly what's going on at the other areas of the department. I've been this year will be my 10th year at the department.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nice. We should celebrate. And I work primarily with, as Geddes mentioned earlier, and I think I've been on the show before too, talking about parrots and seabirds in particular, but I've worked with iguanas and protection of land and plants and looking at wildlife abundance, so looking at populations out there. How many animals do we have? Are they doing well? Are they not? Why is that? Can we do anything to help? But then, of course, I'm also looking at invasive species. So some that you may recognize would be the green iguanas, but we also have incursions, like biosecurity incursions, like the little agama that we found the other day, the little red-headed agama. Yeah, that's supposedly the next green iguana. So, my job is very varied with the department.
Yeah, well, that sounds pretty good. But I mean, terrestrial is one thing, but the principles are pretty much the same whether it's terrestrial or marine, because you want to protect the animals and their habitat, whether it's reefs or forests.
True,
or
it's all interconnected.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, especially in a small ecosystem like the
Absolutely.
Yeah. But damn. So this program talks about, well, under World Wildlife Day, they're looking at creating awareness about applications of technology and wildlife conservation, and the impacts it's had on ecosystems and stuff like that. I know we were talking earlier about some of the global organizations that do wildlife conservation. In your experience, have you worked with any global organizations?
Yes, I mean, we do so all the time. So you mentioned the IUCN and the SSC, the Species Survival Committees. They have different groups for the different types of species. So, for example, we have the ISG, which is the Iguana Specialist Group. And I'm on the board there, on the steering committee there. So we meet regularly and we try and support native iguana populations around the world and bringing expertise together and setting up mentorship and mentee programs and that sort of thing. So that's one of the big organizations sort of globally. And of course the RSPB, we're working with the UK-based RSPB. Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Yeah. So, and just generally, we work with a lot of universities around the globe too. Like we've worked with Mississippi State with the Mark Welch Lab for genetic studies, both for our captive breeding in terms of the blue iguanas, but also sending off samples when we had a hybrid iguana on Little Cayman, a green iguana and a rock iguana that had hybridized. We sent those samples off and they could confirm that we had 50% rock iguana and 50% green. So there's a lot of, especially the lab and highly skilled sort of expertise that we need to get from outside of the islands. And so we work with quite a few of the bigger institutions, but also departments in between. We work with Anguilla National Trust. We work with the DOEs of the various Caribbean islands. So it's all about sort of coming together and sharing your knowledge, and especially not only what has worked well for others, but also what hasn't worked well. So we share our successes and our failures regularly.
Okay, cool. And that's where technology comes in.
Yes.
Communication is key.
Exactly, yeah.
Have you ever done anything like remote work with another group?
Yes, well, so specifically for the green iguanas, so, as you know, we've spent a lot of money and a lot of effort getting a handle on the invasive population of green iguanas on all 3 islands. And we've actually done extremely well, and so much so that a lot of other nations are looking at us for help. So we've done a lot of Zoom calls, presentations remotely, but we have also, of course, visited other islands, spoken to the powers that be, and to kind of say, doing nothing is a decision, and it's not one you should take mildly.
Right. Well, I can share some things because we're looking at the evolution of digital technology, and I myself used to work with the wildlife department in Trinidad and Tobago back in the old days when you'd be tramping through the forest, climbing hills, looking for stuff the old-fashioned way.
The good old days.
With binoculars and listening for stuff. Right. These days now they just set up camera traps. You watch them from home, which would be a lot easier because some of those things I wish I didn't have to go through. But anyway, So I'm looking at the evolution of technology today, and I was we were talking earlier about when I went back and met and visited some of the guys who are in the program now. One of the programs we were looking at in the early days was the presence of manatees in the rivers in the southern part of Trinidad, and we found them eventually after months of searching, going through rivers, going through swamps, mosquitoes, all that kind of stuff. So I went back there and asked the guys, okay, so how's the manatee program going? Oh, great. So and we're doing population censusing and that kind of thing. So okay, so how many hours you spend out there doing accounts? Oh, we don't have to spend many hours. We just go out there and collect some samples. We collect samples. So they're doing environmental DNA samples. Basically, go to a river, dip a test tube in it, and test it for DNA. And that's how they can tell if it's manatees in the water.
It's kind of cheating.
Wow.
Yeah, it is kind of cheating. But that's where the technology has got to. I mean, technology is basically supposed to help make life a bit easier. In some cases, it creates its own issues. But in terms of wildlife conservation, a lot of wildlife conservation, in my opinion, is roughly about half of it is monitoring. Just finding out what's out there and what they're doing. And then you can make decisions on what to do about them. Predators, ocelots. In Trinidad. Trinidad is the only island in the Caribbean that has large feline predator, which is an ocelot. In case people don't know, an ocelot is it's a big cat, looks like a small leopard about the size of a medium-sized dog. And it's a top predator in the ecosystem in Trinidad. But they're extremely elusive. Again, when I was there looking for them, all we could do was look for sign. A footprint here, a scat there, that kind of a scratch. If you're lucky enough, you might find a scratching post. Now they have camera traps. So they just set up camera traps and they can sense ocelots, they can count them, they can identify them by their markings. Yeah, again, it's like kind of cheating.
I know.
But that's where technology is going. It's really cool how technology is helping. And I'm sure people have looked at all those wildlife shows, National Geographic and that kind of thing, and seen how easy it is, with technology to monitor wildlife. I'm not saying it's easy, but a lot easier than when we were doing it in those days.
That's very cool.
So technology has really helped us to become a lot more aware of our environment around us, and now we have a better handle because of technology on what we have, and the status, and now we can make better informed decisions about it.
Yes, you can't protect what you don't know you have.
No, definitely. Yeah, so Guy Harvey uses satellite tags. So do we on some of our turtle releases at the Turtle Center, and there's all kinds of cool tools for technology. Satellite tags definitely one of them. We talk about trail cameras. What else? What else do you have?
AI, when
AI.
you take a lot of photos with your trail cams, for example. Yeah, or you take a lot of underwater photos. I know that that is something we're training right now for the grouper moon spawning aggregations, is the AI for facial recognition. So you can actually go through hundreds of thousands of photos and recognize the individual fish.
Oh, that's way too cool.
Really cool.
Way too cool and scary at the same time. Yeah, drones. The use of drones.
We use drones a lot.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Can't wait to talk about that. And we mentioned before eBird, the technology to store and sort information, and the apps, all the cool apps. Motus towers.
Motus towers, yeah.
Motus towers.
Something we can talk about.
When I was in Florida a while ago, at the which zoo was that? I can't remember if it was the Miami Zoo or the Tampa Zoo. They had a Motus tower set up. That was the first time I've actually seen one. That was very cool. And just in case you don't know, Motus towers are something that monitor migratory birds. Basically they ping birds as they pass by.
Or lots of local birds if you have plenty of towers.
Yeah, they're towers. Yeah, there's all kinds of technology and tools out there available.
All right, guys. Well, that was so much to take in such a short time. Clearly, the evolution of technology in the environmental field has really evolved in a fast time over a short period. But the time is running off on us, guys. So we'll be back, listeners. Please stay tuned. A very interesting episode today. We'll be back after these messages. You are tuned into The Green Scene, brought to you by the Cayman Turtle Center.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Did you know that turtles play an important role in ocean ecosystems? Turtles maintain healthy seagrass beds and coral reefs, providing key habitat for other marine life and helping to balance marine food webs and nutrient cycling. Learn more about our turtle friends at the Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, my name is Coco. I'm a Cayman parrot at the Cayman Turtle Center. I was rescued and love my home here. Did you know our human friends at the center breed and raise Cayman parrots, the national bird of the Cayman Islands, then release them to live in the wild? Come visit me and my bird friends at Cayman Turtle Center.
All right, welcome back, listeners. You're listening to The Green Scene, brought to you by Cayman Turtle Center. So if you were listening with us on our first half of the show, you'll know today's show is about World Wildlife Day. And the theme for 2024 is connecting people and planet, exploring digital innovation in wildlife conservation. So we have in the studio with us today my colleague, Mr. Geddes Hislop, and our special guest, Jane Hakonsson. And in the previous segments, we were talking about the evolution of inventions and innovations in science that help us with conservation. So now we're going to focus in more about the innovations that we are using locally. So Jane, if you'd care to continue and let the public know and let me know more about the exciting stuff that you guys have going on over at the DOE.
Yes, well, thank you. I think as Geddes said, it is really an interesting age that we are living in, because even in my 10 years short career so far, it's changed so much. Much as I miss walking behind the booby pond and having mosquitoes and looking up at a whole bunch of seabirds, you know, it's so much easier to do with like a drone, for example. And we have used drones a lot for all sorts of things. So drones is probably where I would start off, just because people are probably more familiar with the devices and the unmanned aerial vehicles. And so in 2015 is when we started looking at, say, the Booby Pond, our only Ramsar site in the Cayman Islands. So the Booby Pond and Rookery in Little Cayman. It's a National Trust owned property, and it has red-footed boobies as well as frigate birds there. And in order for us to count these birds, it's extremely difficult because they're arboreal, right? Which means they are nesting and roosting up in the trees. So seeing them from underneath the trees, getting stuck in the mud and falling over karst and having to traverse the pond even when it's like half full or full, it's been extremely difficult. But we actually did try to do ground teams. So we had teams on the ground, and then we did the drone as well. And the drone just was able to spatially, we were able to geographically pinpoint our photos to the satellite imagery, updated satellite imagery. So we could literally know exactly where we were. We would stitch. I say we. This is all Jeremy Olenek from the Department of Environment. Big up to Jeremy, because he has georeferenced and stitched so many images with the latest software, and being able to sit with a cup of tea in an AC office, counting the nests of the different species, being able to tell them apart.
Oh, wow. Mosquitoes.
In ArcGIS, it's just been, really second to none. But we also use the drones for, say, Cayman Brac, where we have seabirds nesting on the cliff sides, which, needless to say, is extremely dangerous survey to convey. So we've taken drone footage along the sides of the bluff at different angles so that we can actually count, say, brown booby nests on the side of the bluff. Again, it's also something that's been really cool for our interns to help with, because we don't have to fly them to the Bragg, we don't have to take unnecessary risks for anybody, but they still get a feel of, this magnificent place and being part of conservation by monitoring populations. And then, of course, we do a lot of, pre and post development footage. We investigate beach erosion and everything else through our drones. And overlaying imagery over time. You can see even how sand key keeps moving as the storms come and go, and being able to see a historical overlay of images, it gives
cool.
It's pretty cool, and because sand key is slated for protection due to the least terns that nest on there, it's important for us to monitor the development of the habitat as well.
I remember you talking about. I remember a while back we had a consultant from the UK that was helping with monitoring the boobies and their feeding habits.
Yeah, so we had a Darwin grant to kind of kickstart our seabird research in the Cayman Islands. This was back in 2016 with the University of Liverpool and Exeter. And so the drone surveys kind of started back then, but we did a lot of other really cool things. So we did remote tracking for our brown boobies as well as our red-footed boobies. And remote tracking at that time actually involved getting little commercial devices, very inexpensive, and taking them out of their packaging, whatever they came in, little GPS loggers, and then we would close them into like a plastic tubing that we would heat up, and it would shrink. So we would shrink heat plastic around it, and then we would tape them with a specific kind of tape to the tail feathers of the boobies, and then eventually they would come off, obviously. But we got so many good tracks, and we revealed so much about where our boobies go to fish. So they're actually really quite different spatially. The red-footed boobies go all the way to Jamaica to feed, even though they have chicks in Little Cayman. They'll go for 1 or 2 day trips, so 3 day trips, and the partner will stay on the nest. How they coordinate their schedule, I'm not sure. And then we found that the brown boobies are actually much more coastal feeders and foragers. So they feed relatively close to shore, whereas the red-footed boobies will travel much further. But we also did other things, and I think what you're referring to, Geddes, is the little accelerators we put on the base feathers of the tail. So we not only could see exactly where the animals were, we also got an idea of the depth with which they were diving. So we know that frigate birds don't dive for feeding because they can't get wet. They will drown because their wings are too large. And not waterproof in the same way, whereas the boobies will dive for fish. And so they actually dove different depths and also different angles, which was one thing that we could tell with our equipment. Very, very interesting. And that's why that's how they share the resources, right? If they were feeding in the same areas in the same way, obviously there would be a problem.
That's competition.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume the angle determines how deep you go.
Yeah,
right?
So there's a direct correlation. Okay. And also we used little cameras, little miniature cameras on their on their heads. And little cameras. And we recorded so much interaction between the boobies and the frigate birds. The kleptoparasitism that happens when the frigates come and bully a booby to give up its feast and then swallow it in the air. We had so many battles in the air recorded on those things. So it was a really, really interesting study with the use of a lot of technology that even to this day has been improved since 2016 and 17 when we did the studies.
Oh, gosh. Oh, that was crazy because otherwise you'd have to follow a booby all the way to Jamaica to figure out where they're feeding.
Well, it gets worse, because the second grant that we got for frigate birds. So we were studying especially immature frigate birds to see if there was any overlap with other regional colonies. And those frigates we tracked all the way to New Orleans from Little Cayman. Yes, yeah, because they sleep on the wing. Yes.
Okay. I never thought about that.
Yeah, they just took a little trip to the States, a little trip to Central South America, and back to Little Cayman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very, very sweet.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Well, again, technology, has given us such great insights, even if things you never even thought about. Because, like you mentioned, just back to the boobies, I've seen boobies fishing, and they're all diving.
Right.
And just looking at them, you wouldn't know that they were diving at different angles and different depths, because you just see these birds hitting the water, and they look pretty much the same in the way they do it.
Mm-hmm. But another implication to this knowledge, of course, too, is it's all very well and good for us to sit here and say, well, we're going to protect X, Y, and Z of land and marine areas that is our waters to, and in our authority to do so. That might work for the brown boobies because they're such coastal foragers. But when you suddenly have a bird species that is traversing multiple boundaries, it becomes, you really do get the sense, which coming back to the theme, right, connecting people.
Yeah.
Because we need to organize our efforts with other nations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
Because one of our previous
There are
episodes.
no borders for birds.
Right.
In one of our previous episodes, I remember we talked about conservation is everybody's business.
Yes.
That doesn't extend just locally. For example, I remember reading something about U.S. Fish and Wildlife working with farmers in Guatemala and Jamaica, and I think Cuba too, where they were trying to encourage them to start using you heard about shade coffee.
Shade coffee,
shade
yes.
Coffee.
Yes, yeah.
Using natural standing forest trees to shade coffee, so they don't just turn into
right. So it's a biodiverse
one plantation. They leave emergent
operation.
trees to help migratory birds, so they have places to rest and feed, and maintain some diversity in the ecosystem. But yeah, that's connecting, and that comes through the monitoring, things like we talked about with eBird and stuff. They realize where these birds are going, and yeah, they might breed in North America, but just like the boobies, they have to go somewhere else to feed, to migrate, to whatever. So yeah, and the technology connects people because now they can use that same technology to show things. Wow, that is very cool. So what other stories do you have?
Well, so that's one application of remote tracking. Obviously, we are remote tracking larger marine species, but for me personally, I've just gotten a grant too to remote track our rock iguanas on Cayman Brac. So the reason why that's so important is because there are very few rock iguanas left on Cayman Brac, and they're so scattered, and the environment is much more difficult to study than Little Cayman. So we'll all have seen the rock iguanas in Little Cayman, and they're sitting on the sand, on the lawn, at the museum, and it's very easy. Whereas on Cayman Brac, we have a lot more traffic. We have, the bluff and the karst, the limestone in a whole different, scale. So what we're going to hope to do is actually use some custom-made wireless sensor nodes that has been produced by engineers in Rome, at a university in Rome. And the engineers are coming down, hopefully in April, to test that the nodes will communicate through satellite functioning. So the idea is that we're going to pilot it. They've already tried it on the Galapagos iguanas, which is also critically endangered. And the small devices are a solar panel. They have little solar panels as well as batteries and or a combination of the two. And what's so special about these devices is that they have really obviously accurate position data, so we know where the animal is, but they can also measure temperature, humidity, UV light, and even other parameters that you set them to. And the georeferenced information where the animal is actually uploaded in real time. So that's what is really cool. You don't have to wait to retrieve like the GPS loggers like we have done before. It just basically uses internet network or cellular network and or satellite connection. So we're really looking forward to working with engineers from Rome come April.
Again, connecting people, Cayman and Italy.
Yes,
and
San Diego. It's a 3 partnership project, a Darwin Plus local grant. Finding out where these animals nest is probably our key priority at this point. Because the brac is developing, fast as well, and we need to protect a few of the strongholds if we want to see iguanas remain on Cayman Brac.
The brac iguanas. I think in all the years I've gone to the brac, I've only seen iguanas there maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
All the years I've gone to the 4 iguanas in, I don't know, however many 20-something years. That's wow. That kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm a person looking for wildlife all the time.
And they're distinct genetically as well. Did you know between little caiman and caiman brack?
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they are. So
I remember
So a lot of people.
talking about
So a lot of people are like, can't you just put them all on little caiman or put some from little caiman on caiman brack? It's like, no, we actually can't. so
we actually have.
So they're well,
Two
not
subspecies
quite, because they're not subspecies level distinct yet. But you can detect which island they're coming
awesome.
from
I
by
had no
genetics.
idea.
Yes, that's
that's technology.
and
that's DNA analysis.
absolutely, that's genetic analysis, and that's with Mississippi State. So connection there again.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
oh, that's really cool. Well, we're hoping at some point we can get some. We would like one day to be able to get some monitoring on parrots and see how that works.
Yes.
So yeah, just so for the audience, we also work with DOE with the parrot program. Cayman Turtle Center is not just about turtles.
And the parrot sanctuary.
And the parrot sanctuary, yes, that is very cool. Wow.
But yeah, speaking of birds, I mean, that's another thing that obviously birds are very vocal. They sing and they squawk and they do whatever. So passive acoustic monitoring is short for, PAM is short for passive acoustic monitoring, and it's something that we've been looking into. You can get like any kind of recording device, the Audio Moth, if anyone is familiar with the Audio Moth. No. You can look it up. It's a very small device, very inexpensive. You can buy it and put it out in caves and record bats, because it's not just birds, right? Or you can record frogs and insects and obviously birds as well. So passive acoustic monitoring is one of the new things that is big out there, and it's being used for marine as well, obviously.
Yes, I've done it for the acoustic pinger.
Yeah.
I think for the groupers as well.
Yeah, so it's a combination of it's any kind of sound recorder that you then basically put out into the environment, and you can leave it there, so you are not interfering with the species and you're not, disturbing in any way. And then you can pick it up and you'll have recorded any kind of audible range sound. So birds, mammals, amphibians, or the ultrasound, and that would of course be bats or whales. Yeah, very cool stuff.
Oh, cool. So environmental monitoring. I think I remember some of that. A long time ago, and I think in a past episode we had Dr. Gretchen from CCMI, and she talked about doing something like that during the COVID lockdown.
Yes.
About how quiet the ocean was before and how noisy it is during the lockdown.
Right.
Yeah, like when you were saying fish are noisy.
Yes.
I didn't realize that fish are so noisy.
Yeah.
I'm a terrestrial guy too, but I didn't realize that fish could make that much noise. That's very cool.
Yeah, and apparently acoustics has a real effect on recruitment as well, coral larvae recruitment. I'm not going to say any more on that because I'm not an expert, but it's a thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we've noticed it does. We think it does affect to a point turtle hatchlings.
Right.
Yeah, especially when we.
It would be weird if it didn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
Yeah. All these things that technology reveals to us. So in the deal, right here in Cayman, we're using drones, we're using genetic analysis, using different variations of satellite trackers.
Yeah.
Acoustic
trail cams. Yeah.
Because I think I remember once we were monitoring a parrot. I remember in one case I remember monitoring a parrot nest.
Yes.
Trail
Yeah.
cams.
Yeah, trail cams can be either video or photos taken at intervals. You can set it up however you want it. Yeah.
And data loggers.
Yeah, and acoustic monitoring, and then of course maybe we should touch on the Motus towers as well, because obviously the National Trust got the grant from the Owl Foundation to set up 3 Motus towers, one on each island. Yep, and so. Yeah, you can obviously, the listeners can read more about Motus, but it's a really cool system where we basically kind of just set up 3 towers that is in the right range for some of the thousands of birds that have already been tagged around the world. And if they come within 9 miles or 15 kilometers of the tower, they'll be picked up essentially as a data point. And I think that's particularly important for us here in the Cayman Islands, because we are in the Atlantic flyway, which means that we are really important for migratory birds as a stopover. So even if we think we only have a couple of native species and subspecies, we mustn't forget the bigger role that we play in the global scheme for migratory birds. And Motus towers, without very little hands-on tracking is going to give us some very cool information on exactly what birds are coming to here and stopping over and when.
Yeah.
And all that data, even better, is freely accessible or going to be freely accessible.
Yeah. So technology has given us eyes in the sky where
Yes.
we can't be.
Eyes in the sky, underwater, underground. So as we hear the evolution of conservation science is here, or the future of conservation science is here. And it's helping us out in so many ways that in the comfort of our homes with coffee, we're doing groundbreaking research and analysis. That's so interesting, Jane. Thank you for that. But guys, we're running a bit over on this segment. So many things to talk about. So we're going to take a quick break and bring you a few messages. You are tuned into The Green Scene, brought to you by Cayman Turtle Center, and we will be right back.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Welcome back, listeners. You are tuned into The Green Scene, brought to you by Cayman Turtle Center. I'm your host, Wendy Dandy, speaking with you today, joined in studio with my co-host, Mr. Geddes Hislop. Hey, Geddes.
Hello.
We were speaking about our theme for today, which is talking about World Wildlife Day, which is March 3rd. So lastly, just to wrap it up and make it a nice, neat package, we're going to bring it back home like we usually do. So we want to talk about the technology that we use at the Cayman Turtle Center. So Geddes is going to be so nice to get in to get us a few details. I'll pitch in here and there. But Geddes, why don't you get us started on some of the technology we use towards our marine turtle conservation?
Yeah, well, yeah, listen back to Jane and DOE, and kudos to them on the kind of technology they use. I mean, some really cool
big
stuff.
Kudos, yeah.
Yeah, Cayman is just up there with the time, working with everybody else. But yes, at the Turtle Center, we don't have the of course, we're specializing in the conservation of sea turtles, breeding and release programs. So when it comes to releases, especially, of course, most of the technology, as Jane mentioned, is monitoring. By monitoring and assessing what we have out there, we have a better idea of what we have to protect and how to protect them. So yeah, when we release turtles to track them, we use tracking tags. The ones we tend to use the most people ask us, and in our educational talks that we do at our turtle releases, we talk about PIT tags, passive indicative transponders, I think it is. Anyway, PIT tags. And it's a little microchip that you put in the shoulder of the turtle. Very similar to what you put in a dog or a cat. But these are not satellite tags, so you can't follow it on a computer screen.
More like microchips.
Yeah, microchips.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you have to scan it. There's a hand scanner, like a wand that you have like when you go to the supermarket, and it beeps and the number comes up. So any researcher in the world that picks up a sea turtle will naturally, automatically just scan the turtle to see if there's any tags on them. And once they pick up that tag, they can plug it into a database and it tracks it back to us. And that's how we knew that our turtles are tracking all the way up to the Florida Keys and South America and stuff.
So is there a universal place where they place the tags on turtles?
Yeah.
So you know where would that be for a listener? In the left shoulder, okay.
Yeah, in the left shoulder. So yeah, so any researcher will automatically go straight to that point, scan it, and they know if it's a captive bred turtle, or even if it's not captive bred, it might have been picked up somewhere else before. It might have been tagged in Trinidad and show up back in the Florida Keys, or vice versa. Right? So yeah, we've been able to track turtles that way. We have used satellite tags as well. The problem with satellite tags and green turtles is that green turtles tend to be shallow water turtles. In other words, because of their diet, they feed on marine plants, and they tend to hang out in shallower seas.
Photosynthesis zone.
Yeah, where the light can reach the plants below. So seagrass beds, they eat floating algae as well. But the thing is, they're usually close to reefs, and they have this habit of scratching their shells on the reefs because they like to rub their shells and get barnacles off of them and things like that. So when you put a satellite tag on the back of a green turtle, is going to go scrape it off. And that can be really a pain.
As well as satellite tags are extremely expensive.
You're talking about anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 for a tag. And then you have to buy the time on the satellite. So
that's another thing. You have to register it for the satellite. So some of these guys that come to do research, to give you an example, when they buy time for satellite, that was a great mention there, Geddes. They'll just have a window twice a day, 12 hours in between, say 6 to 7 in the morning, 6 to 7 in the PM, and that's the amount of satellite time they could buy. And so that's another factor you don't even think about, on top of buying the satellite tag, which most likely won't be able to be retrieved as well.
Well, we have had cases of sea turtles. You put a tag on a turtle, you let it go, and then the next day the tag is gone because the turtle just scraped it off. So all that money is down the drain. But the thing is, technology keeps changing and improving and getting smaller. Jane mentioned these nodes, as she call them, that she's going to put on iguanas, that can record so much data, not just where the iguanas are, but temperature and all this kind of thing. And that's just amazing. Even right now, I know that we're working with a company out of the US that's looking at a smaller satellite tag, because it has to be a certain proportion to the size of the turtle, so it doesn't interfere with the turtle's natural habits and functions. But the satellite tag that I've seen is usually about the size of a cell phone, and it goes in a certain size turtle. But now they're looking at satellite tags roughly a little bit bigger than a watch face, and they're testing these out on smaller turtles. And that's happening right there at the center. Nest cameras. We use Nest cameras with our parrots. At the Turtle Center, we breed the two Cayman parrots, the Cayman black parrot and the Grand Cayman parrot. And to avoid disturbing them in the nest, we use Nest cameras. Basically just a camera pointing into the nest that can see in infrared. And we also use a cable camera, so we can stick it through a small hole in the nest box and get closer up to the parrots inside without having to disturb her, and take a look at what she's doing. We use data loggers to track temperature, both for turtles and for the parrots, looking at the nesting. And of course, that's how we know that the nests are getting hotter, and probably the reason why the turtles tend to start breeding earlier in the year, to avoid the heat of the summer. And same thing with the parrots. We noticed that our parrots they're nesting. Last year we had one parrot that was nesting, but the eggs didn't hatch, and when we checked the temperatures in there, the temperatures were just insane. So it was probably outside of the range. So what we have to do is, using things like that, we can better work with these animals to make it a little more comfortable. Try to come up with a way to make the nest box a little more better ventilated, so it's not as hot. Well, we can do that with our nest box. The parrots out in the wild, they have problems because they nest in hollow trees too, and they just don't have a choice. They have to sit in there. Of course, in our lab at the Turtle Center, we have
lots of stuff in the lab. A small example would be this falls under the vets, the blood count. They have machines for that now. I mean, a few years ago that had to be done manually, where you take a sample of blood from a turtle and to see if their blood count is normal, and you'd go through that under the microscope and tediously count through, which now they have a whole machine for that, where you just put it in and it will do what it has to do and quantify and come up with a figure for you. Even for our water sampling, our machines like our BOD, biological oxygen demand, I believe it stands for. Stuff like that tells us how many organisms are in the water by the amount of oxygen it uses up, and tells us if it's at a safe level. You just leave it in a certain refrigerated light container with the magnetic mixers for almost a week. All of these things are automated innovations that has helped us move forward to find out information in a much more accurate and faster way.
Yeah, accuracy is important, because once you know what you're dealing with, you can make better decisions to manage it. Not too much different from balancing your checkbook. You know what you have, how to budget. Yeah, so a lot of these technologies, seems to be to help us monitor what we have and what we're doing.
Yeah, there's even research at the center for things on how to age turtles earlier and sex them as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of behind-the-scenes research that will help advance conservation science in the future, taking place right there at the Turtle Center with other private entities.
Yeah, Yeah, I think later on we get our boss, Dr. Walter Mustin, Chief Research Officer, to come in here and talk about that. Give us some more details in a later episode.
All right, so this was a great episode today, and I'd just like to say again, Happy Wildlife Day to everyone out there. And special thank you to our special guest, Miss Jane Hakonsson, and taking the time out of her day to join us and tell us about the cool things going on over at the DOE. Guys, for those of you who've been here from the beginning, we thank you for staying tuned. And those of you who joined later, thank you as well for staying tuned with us. We will be back next week with a brand new episode talking about Iron Men in wooden ships. So just to tell you about what's going on at the park this week. This week and every week, we have our Shark Talk and Shark Feeding Monday to Friday. Our Shark Talks are at 10:30 a.m. and the feeding at 11 a.m. respectively. Also, come and meet the birds in the aviary, make a small donation to the Turtle Conservation Fund, and have lots of fun hand feeding the colorful birds. Here's a tip for locals. Get yourself an annual pass and enjoy unlimited access to the center all year round. Grill and Chill Saturdays, yes, they are back. Every Saturday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Dive into a poolside barbecue with a live DJ, soak up the sun, and treat yourself to a daiquiri and a bear bucket specials. Simply pay general admission for pool access and relish the DJ tunes while savoring delicious barbecue delights. It's the perfect weekend retreat. Also, guys, turtle nesting season is here. Round of applause. We have started. I believe this is the second week I've been announcing this. It is a very early start this year. Once again, the first boxes are in the hatchery, and the turtle hatchlings will soon follow in a couple of months' time. And in a couple of months, I mean literally 2 months. So keep an eye out for that. And this weekend, or today actually, or this afternoon, join us at Red Sky at Night at the Cayman Harquail Center. CTC will be participating in the Cayman Village with our award-winning act presentation, Iron Men in Wooden Ships. Stop by the CTC booth and learn more about Cayman seafaring, history, and heritage. And lastly, our Turtle Crawl. Join us on Sunday, March 17th for the annual Turtle Crawl 5K, an easy, fun walk-run along Northwest Point Road. Prizes and surprises. Come out, be healthy, have fun, and help support sea turtle and marine conservation in the Cayman Islands. For more information of any of these things I may have mentioned earlier and what's other things happening at the Cayman Turtle Center, please visit our website at www.turtle.ky or visit our Cayman Turtle Center social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. You can also contact us at info, that's INFO, at turtle.ky for any questions or comments on the show. And if you'd like to hear today's episode again or any other Green Scene episodes you may have missed, you can find them on Cayman Turtle Center's YouTube channel. So thank you, Cayman, for tuning in again with us this week, and we look forward to hearing from you or look forward to you locking into us again next week. You are listening to The Green Scene, brought to you by Cayman Turtle Center on Bobo 89.1 FM.